Hello everyone, it's Silvia from Parcel Tarot. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to have a look at my favorite tarot and oracle pairings for the month of August. So we're going to start with a tarot deck that has entered my collection very recently, and I've shown this deck in a video posted. I'm pretty sure I posted the video before this one, and it's a video about the last 10 decks that enter my collection. I don't know if it happens to you as well, but there is sometime every once in a while there is a deck that really catches your attention, and for some reason it's not the easiest deck to get, whether it's because it might be price related, it might be location related, so shipping costs involved, even customs or logistics, or it might be because it might be a very strong, a very intense kind of deck, and you know already that it's going to require a lot of commitment from you when you receive it, or it might be something else. But in any case, you stumble upon this deck and there's something that you keep on thinking about it, you keep on going back to it, and perhaps you saw it on Instagram, so you keep on going back to the account of the person, the creator of the deck. And that's what happened to me when I saw this deck. So I followed the creator's account on Instagram for quite a while, and I witnessed the creation of this deck. You know, it's like following on the growth of a child into adulthood, and literally just the coming of age of an entity, a being. And it's I'm aware that I'm personifying a deck, but it is something that I tend to do when I really do appreciate what I've got in front of me. And this is definitely one of those decks. It's one of those decks you fell in love with. You know, every once in a while it just comes into your life and you know you have to have it. And the fact that it's not the easiest thing to get because perhaps it's not mass market, or for the reasons that I said before, it makes it even more precious, if it makes sense. So this is Le Tarot de Paysage Intérieur, and the creator, the artist, is Camille. By the way, in my latest video I said that this deck was out of print. However, it's only the first edition that is out of print. There is now available in Camille's Etsy shop the second edition, so I'll make sure to put the link to her Etsy shop in the description box below, just in case you want to get your hands on this deck. And I really hope you will, because it's something that it is one of those decks. Last year it was the Sabi Soul Tarot. I completely fell in love with it head over heels, and I feel that this year is going to be this deck, unless there's something in the next 5 months that really takes my breath away. But this will still be top 3, you know, for sure. So let's have a look at it, because so as I said, I received it a couple of days ago and I had time to have a look at it and play with it, and that really strengthened my feelings for this deck. Just you know, to complete the description, I'm just going to translate this. Obviously, this is, the creator is French and the deck is in French, but it's a tarot deck, so obviously following the RWS it won't be difficult, you know, to translate the names. It doesn't rename the majors, it doesn't rename the minors, so you know, chances are that it's not a difficult deck to use even if you do not speak French. And it doesn't come with a guidebook, in the sense that the creator wants this deck to be tapping into your own intuition as well. Therefore, you know, it's all about the emotions and the feelings, and also the memories that the cards may inspire in you, that you need to follow in order to be able to interpret or listen to the message given to you by this deck. I just wanted to say, and I feel like from now on, at least for a while, until it will be, you know, stated for each and every deck on the deck itself, I just want to explain how this deck has been produced. This tarot has been made, has been inspired, or beginning from some original work of art realized by a oil painting on paper by Camille. Camille is the artist. the reason why I'm saying this is because I feel like we recently had so many discussions about AI art that we kind of need to specify the means with which these tarot decks have been produced and made. And I'm really happy to say this because this is completely 1000% original. And this video today is not necessarily a walkthrough of the deck, although I feel like I really want to do something special with this deck, but it will come to me. Today is just reflecting what I've done in the last couple of days, which is actually finding some oracle decks that will pair really well with this tarot. And I think I found a couple that really bring up the emotions, because the whole meaning of this deck is to bring up the emotions and let yourself be you know, embracing this emotion, let yourself be transported by them. So I've got first of all, I think you may recognize it from the backs, this is the Death Doula Oracle. This oracle deck is sharing what I believe to be a kind of an abstract kind of artwork, even though as we've seen before, the tarot deck by Camille is actually being realized by oil paintings on paper, whereas the Death Doula Oracle is more what we would call a digital, actually not, yes, it is a digital collage. However, you know, digital in the sense that I feel like there's a lot of work, you know, post-production work when it comes to certain techniques of stacking of the images, for example. In many cases, although they might have been initially a manual collage. I actually apologize because I don't necessarily know all the nitty-gritty stuff that went behind the production of this deck. This is what I believe has happened when there was this production of the deck. But in any case, this does share some kind of an abstract kind of vibe that you will feel very strongly coming from the tarot deck. So let's have a look at how they go together. So what I wanted to focus on when I looked at pairings for the tarot deck, so the tarot of the interior landscapes, or the internal landscapes, inner landscapes, intérieur, it means from the inside. So it's all about what we feel in ourselves. I thought that the Death Doula would have shared a similar energy, not just because it do share a kind of a similar, as I said, style, but it's also because the Death Doula is literally referring to the internal landscapes that we have. And I really like the fact that we have this conversation that takes place between these two decks. It's not just me, right? I mean, do you feel it as well? I would be very interested in knowing in the comments below what you feel when you see these images, because I believe that when there's a successful combination of an oracle and a tarot deck, it needs necessarily to provoke something, to trigger something. Mind you, there's a definition when we come to psychological terms. There's a definition, there's a separation between what is normally called a trigger and what is normally called a glimmer. Okay, so a trigger, generally speaking, is referred to something that reminds us of, for a particular association of thoughts, it reminds us of a trauma, something traumatic that we have been through that may or may not have been hidden in our subconscious, and it's coming back to the surface because of a very specific kind of association of thoughts that is specifically called a trigger. Now, I hope I'm not getting too technical, but the reason why I'm saying this is because I believe that there's a lot to talk about triggers and glimmers when we look at this association. So a glimmer, on the other hand, is certainly stems from the same kind of thought process, let's say. So you do create thought associations whenever you experience something. However, instead of reminding you of something traumatic that you've been through, it actually reminds you of something nice, something that was that gave you really good feelings. So technically we want to avoid triggers, and we want to have as many glimmers as possible, but that is actually wrong. I don't believe in that. There is something I feel that in the psychological community lately, there's been a bit of a taking a distance you know, between what we used to say for at least the last 10 years, 15 years, that we need to avoid triggers, so triggers need to be avoided. Triggers are there for a reason. And I think that the tarot community in specific, those of us that use tarot as a means to improve our own self in our path for growth, actually know that whenever there is something, a situation that triggers a negative emotion, it actually needs to be worked on. It needs to be brought back into the light. It needs to be considered. It needs to be assessed. It needs to be faced. And then eventually needs to be released if it's something that we want to release, or it needs to be processed. It needs to be valued and cherished if it's something that we want to nurture, it's something that we want to, you know, develop. So I believe that these two actually really help in bringing up the distinction between what needs to be released and what needs to be held, what needs to be nurtured, and then, you know, eventually once it's brought back to the light, it needs to be developed. I think that these two decks may feel like they are more apt for some kind of shadow work, but in my opinion and in my experience as well, for many years in which I've, you know, had clients that needed to release the triggers and focus on the glimmers, I found that there is some kind of affection towards those moments of triggering that trigger their thoughts, because whenever there's pain, there's also humanity. And I really need to specify this concept. Pain in the animal kingdom is always a let's say, it's a double-faced kind of emotion or feeling, in the sense that you can have, when it comes to animals in specific, you can have physical pain, and you can have physical pain in the, you know, when you're a human as well, obviously. And you can also have some kind of an internal kind of inner kind of pain, so metaphysical pain or spiritual pain, sadness, and that can be seen. So there's a lot of changes in you know, in the biological world when looking back at animals, because originally it was thought that animals could not cry, for example, animals could not feel sadness, etc. That is actually being disproven. That is not correct. Animal can feel a range of emotions. They can be happy when they feel secure, when they feel safe, etc. They can be sad, they can be hurt. Now, we don't know the extent of that, and we don't know whether that actually changes, biologically speaking, you know, the physiology of the animal as well. So humans, for example, have a physiological response to sadness. We cry. In some cases, we may feel, we literally shrink, or we feel cold, or, you know, there's a number of things. So we have physical pain in our chest, or perhaps a migraine. There's a lot of physiological responses to sadness. And animals, we do not know the extent of their own physiological responses. We believe that, of course, there are biological and physiological responses, but other than the normal ones, like, you know, hiding when in fear, etc., there's a lot of research going on in that case. Now, I'm saying all this because when it comes to the distinction of between animals and human beings, and it's something that still we still believe that it's proper to human beings and not just generally referring back to animals, is the fact that we can bond also with moments that for us represented a downer, represented something that went, you know, downhill. We can bond with those moments in many different ways, perhaps by the way we responded to those moments, perhaps by the way in which others approached us in those moments, perhaps by remembering the moment of comfort that came afterwards, or perhaps remembering the moment of victory that came afterwards. So for each and every trigger, we can actually create a glimmer. So this is, I probably went to the point, and it took me a while to get to the point, apologies for that, but I really needed that to be clear, because it's not a very simple concept. I could have just said that since the beginning, for every trigger moment there is a glimmer moment, and it would not have been clear. What I really mean is that these two decks together, so the Death Doula, let me just show you that, the Death Doula and the Le Tarot de Paysage intérieur, it's a very good combination together to show you that for every trigger you can create a glimmer. So let's say, for example, if let's do it this way. That's fantastic. Okay, is for the Lovers card, you got the Obsession. This can be a trigger. This, I'm sure, for 99% of the population, these two go very well together. You can have, you know, an obsession about someone you have an interest for, and that obsession could be a trigger, because it could be something that brings back really heavy and hurtful memories. However, what I feel like we need to work on is to create the glimmer. So take the obsession that represents this trigger for you, and remind yourself that you're still here, you still went through it, you still, you know, you're still in one piece, allegedly. You still remember, you can still remember, for example, the help that came from others when you were down in this obsession. You can remember the activities that you've done to try and feel better, perhaps physical activities, perhaps you found something that you really like, a hobby you didn't know you wanted to have, and now you still you know, enjoy doing it. And so you create a path. When you have a trigger, you create a way out of that trigger into a glimmer. So the next time in which there will be a trigger, so the next time in which, for example, you will feel this kind of feeling of being stuck, you know, that the obsession about someone you're thinking about, you will also remind yourself of something positive that you have done or someone else has done for you, and that will be creating a glimmer out of a trigger. Now, I'm not gonna you know, I'm stopping this here because this is quite complex stuff that I'm doing with my clients. We're actually doing that actively together, and so you know, it's something that if you're interested in, just shoot me an email, we can talk about it. But this is what I feel these two decks can really help you do when you use them together. So the Tarot de Paysage intérieur and the Death Doula. Now, I actually have another couple of decks that I feel like they pair up really well with this tarot deck. So I'm just gonna give it a quick shuffle. Now, I am so stoked about this deck because every time I use it, and I have been using it quite a fair bit ever since I got back from my vacation, it's been a complete surprise for me. It's been giving me different vibes, but it's also been a confirmation of the feelings that I got when I actually looked at it, when I saw it. By the way, I really apologize about the noises in the background because as you might know, I've actually come back, so I'm back from my vacation. There's nothing I can do about it. I have really noisy neighbors, and there's, you know, even when I try and communicate and ask them you know, to give me a bit of a time frame, I don't get many responses. In any case, I'll try it with my voice to cover the noise, which is quite annoying outside. I'm really sorry about that. So what I'm doing now, I'm going to show you the pairing up of the same tarot deck, and then I'm going to pair it up with the Coon Oracle. Now the Coon Oracle is by Inji Darwish, and it's an oracle deck that I was lucky enough to find in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, at the Kinokuniya store in Kuala Lumpur, and it has been printed in Malaysia. But it's a fantastic oracle because, well, the first reason why I actually got it was because when I saw the name, in my head I pronounced it Coon, and Coon is also the way in which you would pronounce a Japanese word. And you know how much I love Japan and the Japanese culture and Japanese language. And Coon is a concept. It's obviously a word, but it's expressing a concept, and it's a concept that is very important for a tarot reader or a storyteller in general. And it refers back to the bond you create between that gets created between let's say a storyteller and their audience. So whenever you're telling a story, you can't tell a story if you don't have an audience. You can tell it to yourself, but you still qualify as audience. So every storyteller needs an audience. And having said that, there is this bond that is being created. And this bond is, in many cases, determining whether you're a good storyteller or not. Can you actually deliver the message you originally intended to deliver? And can you do it in a proper way? And proper refers back to the ability of the storyteller to make the audience understand what they mean, what they're saying, what the message is. Now, the way in which one single word expresses all of this concept is, to me, unbelievable, because the Italian language in specific uses a lot of words to express one concept. The English language perhaps is a bit more symbolic, but there's other languages, in particular Eastern languages, that actually have the property that they express a lot with one single word, and I think it's absolutely magical. It's fantastic. I really love that. Now, when I got this deck, the Coon Oracle, for some reason, I knew that it was a Japanese oracle, but I did not know what the meaning of the word coon meant in Arabic, because it's actually an Arabic word and it means simply be. So it's the status of being, of listening, and it's referring back, I believe that it does have some kind of a common origin with the Japanese concept of the word. So the fact that there is that bond, that it refers back to existence, it refers back to existing as well. So I really enjoy using this. This is, let's say, a fairly recent acquisition in my collection, and it's also an oracle that comes with a very interesting guidebook and companion book, let's say. And I really do believe that in many cases you actually do need to go back to the guidebook, because the cards themselves, the association between the artwork and the keyword is not necessarily 100% speaking to me, or at least not yet. In many cases it is. For example, the humble message in here is very clear, absolutely. And you know, it's what I really like is the fact that there is a lot going on between these two decks as well. There's, you know, a common color palette, I feel, but there's also a lot of resonances between the energies of these two decks. So we got the Six of Swords, for example, and Judgment between the you know, at the side of the word humble. It's very simple. When we are embarking upon this journey that is supposed to take us to something better, a better shore, we need to keep you know, being humble and just recognizing that we have our own limits, that perhaps we need help, perhaps we also need to lower ourselves and just be accepted and embracing that we might be of service. Embracing a life of service means perhaps not shining okay? Not being a star or a celebrity, but it means having the possibility to heal, having the possibility to make someone feel better. So I really like the way in which these two decks work together. I think it's a fantastic combination. And as I said before, in many cases you will have to look back to the guidebook and have a look at what the author intended when they you know, they built a card like that, calling it pelican and everything. To me, it's the way in which they are absolutely so strong, and there's always, you know, that saying that they can, their beak, I think their beak can hold more than their belly can. There's something like that in English, and I always laugh whenever I say that because I can't really say it. It's kind of a tongue twister, and it took me ages to just understand where to put the word belly and where to put the word beak and everything. So and it always makes my husband laugh because I cannot say it properly. But to me, pelicans have always, you know, gotten that kind of meaning, that they are taking more than they actually can digest or process. And perhaps that's what is referring back to the 10 of Wands in this case, because that's exactly what you're doing in the 10 of Wands situation. You're just taking on so much on yourself that it's actually a little bit too much. Although, you know, it does show that you will eventually succeed. Although let's not forget that the 6 of Wands, yes, is referring back to a victory, but it's also referring back to a victory that is achieved through the help of a team. So I really like the way these two work together. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. So this is the Coon Oracle, and I paired it up with the Tarot des Paysages Intérieurs. Let's have a look at another pairing, still with this tarot deck, which I really like, and perhaps another bit of a shuffle. So it's a square. Let's talk about the quality. It's a really beautiful cardstock. It has that buttery feel that reminds me a little bit of the US Games decks from the 80s, or even the Somnia Tarot, for example. If you have the Somnia, you will know what I mean. It's not super, it's a semi, I'd say it's a, is it a semi-gloss? No, it's more like a matte, but it's, okay. It's a semi-gloss. The technical term will be semi-gloss because this is not 100% matte. But it's a really excellent, as I said, cardstock. Very sturdy. It feels, you know, it feels good. The tactile sensation in your hands is very good. The color palette is muted, and it's a kind of melancholy kind of color palette that, you know, you find with the grays and the burnt browns and the grays and the whites and the greens perhaps sometimes. But it's a very specific color palette that helps a lot, you know, while using this deck. And because of the color palette, I thought about this deck, pairing it up with this deck, which is the Mantra Oracle, which is also a well, not a recent, but I've had it for perhaps 6 weeks or something like that. Now, to just refer back to the Mantra Oracle, this deck is, as the name says, it's a deck that focuses on mantras. So there's a lot of introspection work that can be done with this deck, and a lot of meditation work that can be done with this deck. And just as a bit of a preview, I am going to offer a meditation kind of video series that I'm going to post, and everything will be revealed at the end of August, because I'm going to do a few changes to my channel starting from the month of September. So stay tuned, because there's a lot of things that are going to happen, a lot of things going on. Now, as I was saying, this pairing has been brought to my attention by the, let's say, the similarities in the color palette. However, when I tried these two together, I felt like it was a necessary pairing. It's one of those pairings that feels necessary. So why is a pairing necessary? Sometimes when we have a tarot deck that we like so much, or as much as I like this tarot deck, when it's a let's say, a very intense deck, in the sense that perhaps leans a little bit more towards one way or another. And in this case, I feel like this deck leans towards shadow work. If you want to use it all the time, like I want to, you need an oracle deck that actually brightens up a little bit the energy or the vibe of that deck. And I feel like the mantra oracle does exactly that. It brightens up the images and the messages and the energies and the vibe of this deck. And the mantra oracle, by the way, can also be used on its own. As a matter of fact, I think that the intent of the creator was for this deck to be used for meditation. Otherwise, it wouldn't be called mantra, you know what I mean? It's kind of obvious, isn't it? But what I really, really like about this pairing is that you can actually create a conversation here. You can read with it, and I feel like it's going to be a really good combo when it comes to clients' readings as well, because the oracle will definitely give me the possibility to expand on the message, because it does have a mantra, and also the, well, Om Namah Shivaya. It's purifying power of fire. It's not a literal translation. So this is a mantra dedicated to Shiva, obviously, and Shiva is the god of destruction. So obviously you can have the reference back to fire, but it's also the purifying power of that destruction, the purifying power of that tower moment, for example. That's something that we're all familiar with. What I like is that there's associations being made with the tarot deck that are really coming flowing. So you got the moment in which you're stuck of the Two of Swords, and you need that purifying power of fire, perhaps to burn everything that you've got, because perhaps those two swords, those two choices you're stuck in taking, because neither one of them is that much appealing to you, let's be honest. You need that purifying power of fire in order to be able to overcome those obstacles, in order to be able to make up your mind. And the mantra of compassion, so we're talking about compassion in Om Mani Padme Hum. It's, you know, the referring back to the power of lotus, the lotus flower, which is always referring back to spirituality. And it's just finding the mantra of compassion between the sun and the Queen of Cups. It's just, it brings you back to the meaning of the Queen of Cups, the meaning of the empath, the person that is actually nurturing everyone else, the person that has achieved that level of confidence with their own feelings, that they are at peace with themselves. So it's not a storm of emotions, but it's let's see, it's a sea of tranquility. So you've got the moment of happiness that is never necessarily stable in the sun, because to me the sun is the peak that has come after a trough, but it may actually, you know, it may precede another trough. So it's very important for us to understand where the sun is. Are we going through something really, really joyful, and are we not being mindful of where we're coming from and where we're going? Perhaps that's why there's that happiness in the sun, because we're just forgetting what we've been through and we're not minding what we will go through. But there is that compassion. So if we're going through this moment in which we are appreciating the light of the sun and the joyfulness that comes with it, perhaps let's reserve some of that joy for the others, the compassion, compassion. Cum patire in Latin, it means that you are actually suffering with others. I know that it doesn't sound like that, but it's literally the origin of the word cum patire. So cum means with others, and patire is suffering. So compassion is where you're actually sharing the burden with others. And that's exactly what the Queen of Cups will do. So as you can see, there's really this kind of combination is very, very strong. They really form this kind of bonds, these two decks. So no more betraying my consciousness between the Wheel of Fortune and the King of Pentacles. Or if we go a little bit further, we got the compass of my soul between the devil and the world. It's really beautiful because the compass of my soul for me is giving you direction. Perhaps when the devil comes up, it means that you're distracted. Okay, you're distracted, you got lost into a spiral of shame and self-defeat, and you know, all those kind of things that bring you down, and they make you blind to where you're actually going, you were supposed to go, and you need a compass. You need to know what the right direction is, and then you can focus into achieving something. So these two together, as I said, really fantastic combination. They really have this conversation going on. You just need to go with the flow, and this is something that is actually at the beginning in the description of this tarot deck as well. So the artist is asking you to actually let yourself be taken by the memories that, you know, these images may trigger in you. And I really like the way in which the Three of Swords has been depicted. So if you haven't watched my latest video, I explained that I fell in love with this deck because I saw the Three of Swords. And this is a person that has been thinking so much, has been worrying so much, that is actually digging a hole on the ground. And that's exactly what I do when I'm worrying, when I'm anxious, actually pacing around a table generally. And I keep on pacing and pacing and pacing. So it's really beautiful the way in which I vibed with this deck since the beginning. It's something that I think it's worth pursuing, even when perhaps there might be some obstacles in, you know, getting a deck. When you vibe so much with it, absolutely go for it, because I really believe that the rewards are infinite, and it's very powerful. So these two together, as I said, very good combination. And again, this is the Le Tarot de Paysage Intérieur, and this is the Mantra Oracle. And another oracle deck that I think paired up really well with this tarot deck is the Wayfarer deck. Now, this is not necessarily an oracle deck, although it can be used as an oracle deck. Originally, it is one of those decks that you can use as prompts in a creative writing course. So it actually, I think that's what it's been, you know, described as. But to me, this is fantastic. I really love these ones. Unfortunately, there's not that many cards to that deck, to the Oracle deck. So obviously, I need to level it by removing some cards from the tarot deck. But these two together, because they probably share, even though this is a photographic deck and this is a painted deck, they share a lot of similarities in the color palette, in also the way in which the photography comes out as a painting sometimes in this oracle deck. I really love the messages on the oracle, and they pair up really well with the cards. It's crazy the way in which these two interact. We got the Three of Cups, be bold, but not too bold, with the Five of Swords. We got the road is long when you start something in the realms of the feelings. You know, it's just the beginning, so be aware that the road in front of you is long. However, you do have the Empress with your side, with you at your side. You know, it signifies the creativity, the power of nature, and the support that you can get, even though the road is long. Yes, but you're not on your own. Find the way to the light after the Knight of Swords, which is the warrior, and the Two of Cups, which is the card of the interaction between two souls, two human beings. So perhaps, you know, you are a warrior, but you also need to realize that the light can also be achieved through the cooperation of someone else. It's a very good combination. I was in awe when I tried these two. Sometimes I have a hint that something can work really well together, but I don't necessarily know until I actually work with the two decks. And I was really pleased with the result. I really wish that the Wayfarer deck had more cards, at least, I don't know, 44. I know that it you know, it wasn't meant to be an oracle, so I cannot really say anything about it. And as a matter of fact, when it comes to, let's say, giving up prompts for creating writing, you know, 15 cards is more than enough, because how many short story can you write? But it is really, really beautiful. The photographic style is just fantastic. So the King of Wands in the world beyond worlds, between the King of Wands and the Two of Wands. And it's just amazing how, you know, we talk about world in the world beyond worlds. So let's get, we have this world in the same as the Two of Wands, and we hold it in our hands, and we know that that's something that we know already, we're familiar with it, but sometimes we're looking ahead at the horizon. And we need to understand that we need that kind of initiative and the fiery power of the King of Wands in order to go beyond this world into other worlds. Absolutely amazing. Let me just see what it gives me for the Three of Swords, which keeps on coming up. Okay, well, it says a path opens up between the Three of Swords and the Ten of Wands. I feel that in this case, the Three of Swords refers back to the pain you feel when you're stuck, because you grow from the Two of Swords in which you're stuck because you can't take a decision, and that stillness, forced is actually painful to you. Your mind is overthinking, you're overreacting, but don't worry, a path is opening up for you, except that you need to be careful, because it's not over yet. You know, you'll be taking a lot onto your shoulders, but the important message is just there is something that it will open up for you. So I really, really love these two together. But again, please let me know what you think in the comments below. So this is again the Tarot de Paysage Intérieur, and it's paired up with the Wayfarer Oracle or Wayfarer deck. So another deck that we're going to pair up with, well, in this case, tarot decks today, is the Sacred Nature Oracle. This is the mass market edition, and I must say it's a very affordable deck, considering the product value. I mean, we're talking about heaps of cards here. Sorry, I had to, because I bought it overseas, and I actually went over the weight limit on my bag. Because of all the decks that I bought, I actually had to improvise, and so in some cases I kept just the deck and the guidebook, but I couldn't keep the box. So and then I had to ship some of the decks from Thailand back to Australia, and the box hasn't arrived yet. So the guidebook for the deck is actually in the box, which hasn't arrived. So I cannot tell you, unless I stay here and count them, I cannot tell you how many cards there actually are. In any case, I'll make sure to put the link to the deck in the description box below, just in case you're interested in purchasing it. It's available, you know, on Amazon or you know, your bookstores, pretty much everywhere. This is an incredibly beautiful deck. I've spoken about this deck in a couple of videos before, so I'm not going to talk about it too long. However, what I did do recently was to try and find some good tarot decks that I can actually use to pair up with this, and I think I find at least 3 of them that benefit from the nature and the vibe and the energy of this oracle deck. And one of them is the Serpent Fire. Now this is still with me, so there's been a bit of a back and forth with a couple of my subscribers that wanted to purchase this from me, because I actually it was featured in one of my deck call videos. I will definitely, I love this deck. However, my preferred edition is the one with the borders. And so whenever I will find the possibility to get, you know, the deck with the borders, then I will definitely rehome this. So for the time being, I'm actually still using it. It is the kind of deck that I feel benefits a lot from this, the energy of the Sacred Nature. Because to me, the Serpent Fire is what I would call, perhaps wrongly, but that's how I feel calling it, a cosmic deck. So the energy that I feel comes out of this card is a very cosmic kind of energy. And I feel like in some cases we need to be brought back down to earth. So it is very well to have an as above kind of deck. that really refers back to the fact that we're all starseed and we all belong to the same universe, etc. It is, it's a very beautiful approach to humankind. However, sometimes it can actually lift me up too much from the reading. So when I use the serpent fire in a reading, I necessarily need to stay in the so below. I don't know if it makes sense, but unless I use it for meditation or for, you know, self-growth or for journaling, etc., when I actually do readings with the serpent fire, it is always a good idea to be reminded of how our nature is actually in the so below. And I feel that when I pair up these two decks, I actually have that kind of reminder, and it's the vibes that are expressed by the sacred nature are strong enough to actually bring back down the vibes, the, you know, the kind of a astral feeling vibes of the serpent fire. And not to talk about the fact that there's also a lot of similarities when it comes to the characters on the cards. So obviously both decks feature human beings, and they there's a photographic quality to both of them, even though the color palette is different. But there's also a photo manipulation that is different, because we're talking about collage kind of manipulation in the serpent fire, whereas we're talking about, you know, this a sepia effect that has been achieved in the Sacred Nature Oracle. But I don't really think that that is clashing. I think that that actually works as some kind of a bridge between the two decks, and I really like the way, as I said before, these two interact with each other. And I love the fact that in many cases you can really notice the differences in where, oh, this is not supposed to be upside down, sorry, don't know what happened there. In many cases the characters of the sacred nature will have their eyes covered. In other cases they will have their eyes open. Now I really like that, because whenever there's something that is different, perhaps this person has their eyes closed but they're not covered. So perhaps that's symbolic. So I really tend to notice these kind of things in an oracle, because it is pointing to something. And even if the intention of the creator was not such, but it is the intention of the reader to find these differences as meaningful. And so I really like to have a look at, for example, the directionality of the characters in the images as well. This looking up, or, you know, it's very symbolic. In the card of the interrelationship, we need to be opening up, and looking up is the way in which a human being is actually opening up to whatever there is around them. And we've got the Two of Wands, which is the card that is literally trying to go from one world that is the known world, looking outside into beyond that. But we also have the Five of Cups that reminds us that sometimes when we open ourselves up, there could be losses. Although, you know, the Five of Cups to me is not it's one of those cards in which you say, yeah, it's a loss, but it's a temporary one, and you know, you can get over it, you can move forward, you can move on from that, because it's actually something that has a beautiful sky in the background, you know, symbolic of recovering from that loss. So I really like this combination, and in many cases there's so many echoes between the characters that it really points to a conversation between the two decks. But let's have a look at another couple of decks that I really like pairing up with the Sacred Nature. So as I said, this is the Serpent Fire, and it's the 7th edition. So another deck that I feel pairs up really well with the Sacred Nature Oracle is the Somnia Tarot. Now, there's a lot of similarities, of course, between these two. So the photographic kind of imagery, and there is a little bit of photographic manipulation in the Somnia Tarot as well, even though I have to say, and I always say it, there is a lot of skills in these photos. You can really tell that the person, the creator, is a photographer by profession because of the use of the light, for example. And this is available light, it's not studio light, as opposed to the light in which that was used in the Sacred Nature. This is definitely a studio light. This, in many cases, perhaps this is studio light as well, but this is definitely available light. So the difference between these two, available light is basically thought to be, you know, the light that is available without having to go to a studio, so natural light. Even though, as having been a photographer and a video producer for many years, I can assure you that available light is any damn available light that you have. Whether it's natural or not natural, it doesn't matter, because light is one of the most important things whenever you're shooting, you're filming, whatever you're doing. I can assure you 1000%, you can have, everyone may be ready, you can have your batteries charged and everything. If you don't have light, there's nothing you can do about it. So that's why I was traveling and I was filming a couple of videos that had to stop because there were a lot of blackouts or power outages in Sri Lanka. And so I was in the middle of a video and it was going really well, and then all of a sudden the lights will go off and there will be no way. So even though I had spare batteries for my phone and all of my filming gear, without lights there's not much you can do. So anyway, getting off that tangent, so I was saying these two pair up really well together. They have that kind of energy. I really, really like the way in which, for example, the Sacred Nature Oracle gives you a different dimension and a bit of a breath out of the constriction that comes from the images that you can find in the Somnia Tarot. And just for you to know, the concept behind the Somnia Tarot is the one of the sense of suffocation that you can feel or experience whenever you're experiencing sleep paralysis. That's the concept the creator based this deck on, and that's the reason why 90% of the characters in this deck are covered in a shroud. In many cases there's a lot of ropes. You know, they're tied down by a lot of ropes. When they're not, they have perhaps their hair you know, combed in the front of their face just to cover their faces. So there is that sense of constriction and paralysis, you know, that comes in that moment of your sleep, in which your mind is actually awake but your body is not. So your sympathetic nervous system goes haywire, your parasympathetic system is trying to calm it down, your vagal nerve is all over the place, and you literally you have these images of someone sitting on your chest. That's actually very common in every culture. I was actually studying this kind of phenomena a few years back, and I was reading about you know, cultures in the middle of the Amazon basin, and so Amazonian tribes, for example, and they have a name for that. So that kind of, you know, sense of having someone or something sitting on your chest and impeding every movement when you're just in that liminal space between the sleep and the wake. And it means there is obviously something that resides in the brain, and the brain is creating these kind of images to justify the sensorial data that is brought back by your body to your brain. But I don't want to get too technical. What I want to focus on in this case is that these two really help you get out of that sense of constriction, that sense of paralysis, because you start from that and you focus into something that shows you the path out of it. So you have perseverance between the High Priestess and the Two of Cups, and that's amazing. The relationship that you can build with others, the meaningful connection, persevere in that, because perhaps at the beginning it will be difficult. But you have the power to do that. You have that introspection. Perhaps the others don't, you do. So use it. It doesn't always have to be two ways. Or movement between the Queen of Coins and Death. Or courage between the Tower and the Fool. Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's start again. But you need the courage to do that. So I really like these two, the vibes that they give you whenever you use them together. It's something very powerful. It's something that I highly recommend. I mean, this deck, the Somnia Tarot, is an indie deck. And the Secret Nature used to be an indie deck, but now it's mass market. It's very affordable. So I highly recommend, if you like this pairing, let me know in the comments below what you think about these two together. I really think that it's a very beautiful pair. But let's have a look at another deck that I think will pair up really well with the Secret Nature Oracle. And I am talking about my crush from last year, which is the Sabi Soul Tarot. By Julie Whitelish. Now let's just have a shuffle of the Secret Nature so that we don't have to look at the same cards over and over again, even though it's always nice because it's a beautiful deck. So as I was saying, my deck crushed. The deck I fell in love with last year, 2022, was definitely the Sabi Soul Tarot. It was a Kickstarter from, I don't remember, April, I don't remember. When I finally got it, it was probably around October. Again, don't remember. But I was stoked when I received it. It's been on my desk. It's not left my desk for months on end. I used it over and over again, and I noticed that I have a lot of clients that have been requesting this deck after watching you know, some of my videos in which I feature the deck, I feature pairings with the deck, and I feature a detailed walkthrough of the deck as well. So let's have a look at the reason why I really believe that these two are made for each other. And that is a bit of a combination between the nature of the two, the artistic nature of the two. So we do have, again, these photographic images, even though there is a bit more manipulation when it comes to the Sabi Soul Tarot. There you go. You have the same kind of feelings that are so proper of the cards. So when you have the Queen of Coins and you look at the Mastery card from the Oracle deck, and you feel the sense of pride of this figure, of this character, and the sense of pride of this figure, of this character, it is exactly the same. But it's also referring back to the nurturing nature of the Queen of Coins into the Ten of Cups, the family. So the mastery of that nurturing nature. It is incredible. Every time you will pull these two decks together, I can assure you the combination will just be mind-blowing. It's just something that does not leave you. It's something that stays with you. The meaning of the cards will definitely, it's one of those decks, one of those combinations that actually change your perspective on things. I have had that happening in 35 years of reading and collecting tarot decks. I've had my personality and my view on things and my perspective change thanks to tarot and oracle decks so many times that now it is part of my growth, my personal growth. Having the opportunity to broaden my horizons is often given to me by traveling, which is something that I will never stop doing, you know, if I can physically and economically and financially afford it. I hope I always will be able to find a way, but it's something that when it comes to tarot and oracle deck, I will always keep my mind open to the changes, the new perspective, the new horizons that you know, using these instruments will give me. And so these two together, they're absolutely fantastic. I hope you can feel, can perceive the way in which even the characters have this kind of resonance into the way in which they look on the side, or they look directly at you, or they don't even, they face you but they don't look at you because perhaps they're closing their eyes, like the card of the character in the Perseverance card and the character in the Three of Swords. So this closing their eyes, and the fact that there is, for example, this character has crossed their hands on their chest, and this is something that has happened in this character as well, because you see here, that's the imprint of a hand on the heart. So there's this resonance that goes on, this amazing way of communicating between these two decks. And it's just something that it makes me happy every time that I use it. It's something that, so seeing two decks communicate this well, it's something that genuinely actually makes me happy, because it's a way in which I am forging connections. I'm not just seeing them, I'm actually creating them. And I hope that, you know, others, by seeing this connection, will create other connections as well. Perhaps there is a deck that you think or you feel will pair up much better, you know, with the Sacred Nature Oracle. In that case, please, by all means, just let me know in the comments below, because I'm always open, always open to try new things, because that's the only way we have to grow. You know, change is the only way forward, always. So this was the last pairing that I wanted to show you today, and this is kind of a video that will be recurring. Every month I will present you with my favorite pairings between Tarot and Oracle decks of the month. I hope you will enjoy that. So more to come. Have a great day.